WRED-TV celebrates its 50th anniversary, we wanted to take the time to highlight some of our alumni who have helped shape our club into what we all see today. I'm Caitlin Prieto, and joining me today is Patricia Clark, who graduated from St. John's University in class of 1973. She served as the first Vice President of WRED-TV and went on to be the first female president of the club. She's worked as a camera operator, technical director, and lighting director for ABC, as well as her own freelance work. Earlier today, we had the opportunity to tour the 4th floor of Marillac with Patricia and learn how TV Club and its facilities have changed over the past 50 years.
I mean, this was our studio. The room is the same, but everything inside it is so different. We used donated RCA TK60 black and white cameras that had turret lenses. We had one zoom lens that had like a spear that you leaned into to get the lens to zoom. And then you had a crank focus after you got to your shot, so there was never really a smooth transition. I mean, I see you have a jib. There was nothing like that then. Flat screen TVs. We had bulky monitors on roll-around carts, but we did some great shows. I used to work here. I was the production coordinator. After I graduated in 1973, I did a summer at ABC, and then in the fall I was hired by Winston Kirby, who was then our director of the television center. So this was my office. Just being in this hall, like this was our main entrance to it. Just being in this hall really takes me back. We would, do a show, and then we'd have all kinds of problems. We'd be running late, and we would all just sort of gather in the hallway and try to figure out what our next steps would be. And the control room. Our control room was actually these two rooms. It all faced this way. Our tape equipment, which was 2-inch tapes, and the maintenance shop was back there, along the whole wall there. So if you turned this whole thing around, you'd get that configuration that we had back then. This was a second studio. This is where we did Dr. Franzetti's English show, Shakespeare show, I believe was done in here. And we did a couple of TV broadcasts in here as well. We also had a dark room back there because we had to, in order to get credits, we would have to do graphics, like just press on letters, and then shoot them on slides, develop them, and then key them. So it was a whole process.
Thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
So, I wanted to have you on just sort of talk about your time in TV Club,
Sure.
And just like your experience, just like as a woman, in the industry, from start, like even to now. I know you're still working. And I mean, what's it like being back? Like, I know there's a lot of big differences.
Oh, sure. As we walked through earlier, it's amazing the difference. Even though this is the same room that we started the club in 1972. You asked me about being the first female in the club. Interestingly enough, I mean, I actually was the second graduating class from the communications program. So just going back a little bit, just growing up, I mean, I was probably one of the first TV generations. I was a child in the 50s and the 60s, and TV was a big part of my life back then. And so I always wanted to be in TV, never knew how to get there, had no connection. My father was a car dealer. My mom was a dental assistant. So we had, really no connection to the business. And then I came to St. John's with the idea that I would go to law school or something like that. And then I was outside the cafeteria in Marillac Hall, and there was a poster up that they were starting a communications program with like a television program and a film and all of the things that I really wanted to be in. And I thought that was like the greatest day of my life when I discovered that. So I signed up for it at the end of my first semester of my freshman year. Shortly thereafter, I learned about the television center, and I came up here and I met a few people who were here. This guy named Ozzy Alfonso and my friend Andy Bamberger, we all sort of started, like Ozzy was the director, the production coordinator here, and Andy and I started the TV club just within, I don't know, the second semester of my freshman year. I mean, we started it pretty soon, and there they are. Andy has a great mind for television and for scripts and for directing and producing and writing, and I really looked up to him a great deal when I first started. And so we formed the club. We got a bunch of people together who were in the communications program, and we asked the campus to recognize us as a group, and they did. And by my sophomore year, we were pretty much in full swing. Andy became the president, I became the first vice president. We kind of became fixtures up here. And you asked me about being a woman in this. For all of my experience at St. John's and in the television club, I never felt any sort of discrimination or anything like. We were all equal partners. You know, we each contributed what we could, what we knew, what we learned. And I never felt like I was not on the same par as, say, Andy or Jeff Suarez or any of the other guys. As far as St. John's went, I didn't feel any kind of discrimination at all.
You spoke a little bit about like how you didn't have any connections at first. So I know when you get to the club, I guess you sort of meet everybody. So do you think like maybe you could speak a little bit about how those connections sort of help you get started in the industry?
There's a fellow named Marty Healy who was he was the public relations director for the university at the time, and he was a big force in forming the communications program here. And what he did was he recruited people from the industry to be professors. So I had Fred Schumann, who was vice president of engineering at ABC. I had George Heineman, who was a vice president of children's programming at NBC. We had Emmy Florentino, who was one of the most decorated lighting directors ever, come and do a lecture in a class for us. We had so many people. We had Barry Farber, who was a radio announcer for, I think, WNEW back then, and a journalist. We had different producers. And, you know, each professor would know someone else that they could bring along. So for my time here was outstanding in the exposure. And they would bring the classes into the city. We would be in newsrooms. Florentino was lighting director in Dick Cavett Show. We all went to the Dick Cavett Show. I mean, so we were constantly immersed in television with these professors. I think the one that I was the closest to was Fred Schumann. He taught television production here. He was kind of a no-nonsense guy. He taught you to be on time and to be prepared, make sure you understood, you know, what your job was, what your assignment was. He brought us through a tour of ABC studios. He would bring in, like I said, many different guest lecturers. We had a guy who was the head sound effects guy at ABC, do an example for us of how to put sound effects together. So honestly, we had a lot of exposure while I was a student here to the real world industry. Of course, we had all our other regular classes that we had to take that were non-TV or, you know, communications related, but we did get a very good start. And Fred helped a lot of us, I say a lot, but a good number of us get jobs in the industry before we graduated and after we graduated. He helped me become the engineer at ABC by giving me a chance at a summer job. And then I did a summer job a couple of times, and then finally they asked me if I would stay on as full-time. My career is directly related to St. John's University and the television club and the communication arts program.
How do you think, I guess, since, I mean, you know, you're one of the founders of the club, I'm sure even to this day, like we can all speak about it, TV club is just a huge part of the program. Why do you think that's like the case, you know, that it became as big as it did, as important to the program as it did.
It's actually stunning to me that this club is still in existence. I mean, we did it for ourselves. We had no idea that it would keep carrying on, you know, year after year. But I think television is kind of an addictive thing. I mean, you get an interest in it and you want to be around it as much as you possibly can, you know? So with a few others, we actually worked jobs here. And I think you said you still have some staff people here. We had to do a math show and a Shakespeare show that were done here, but then were broadcast in the auditoriums for large classes. So we actually did have work to do aside from our television club duties, which was great. It gave us a lot of experience. So by the time I got into the business, I already had a pretty solid background in television production. Now, of course, the camera work is somewhat limited. I had to, you know, be an apprentice on a soap opera and all these different things to be able to really hone my skills. But all the basics I learned. I think that carries on. I think when you come into the studio and you do these jobs, you know, it can just spark something in someone. And I think that's been what's been happening year after year after year.
Absolutely. I feel like the sentiment is still the same
Yeah.
even now. So do you remember, I guess, a lot of the shows that you guys did? Like, what else did you guys do, you know, when you first started?
When we first started, oh, well, a lot of our shows came from the brains of Andy Bamberger. He was our guru for this. He had a fixation with the Marx Brothers. We did several Marx Brothers takeover shows. We did a dating game show. A little later on, we did a thing called the Coffee House where we had bands come in and we would do, you know, have coffee and some tables around, and we would shoot all these different music shows. We did, and this was also because of Ted Jaco being the chief engineer here and just such a great ally for us. He was always on our side, even though he's grumpy, he was always on our side. And we wanted to do, cover some football games. That meant taking these enormous cameras out of here, roll them to the football field, and run the cables out the window of the 4th floor down to the field. I mean, we did that. We aired football games. We aired a graduation. We did, well, one of the things that I produced and directed when I was, I think I was actually working here then as the production coordinator after I graduated. We did a show it was called Once More with Feeling. It was on the spotlight of the Chapel Players, which I don't know, are they still here?
Yes, we actually just did a segment on them recently too.
Okay, so we did we followed them all through their rehearsals and all of their show, A Funny Girl. And we brought cameras down to the theater, you know, roll them down the street. So we were just really interested in doing as many different kinds of shows as possible. Scripted, live, all kinds of shows. We weren't formatted, like we didn't have a news show. We weren't WRED. We didn't have call letters. Our programs aired on UHF television, which you probably have no idea what that is, but it was a different it was a secondary set of channels to Channel 2 for. It was like Channel 3 or Channel 6, like channels that didn't really have an assigned station to it, we'll say. And so they could come on at like 6 in the morning or whatever. And I actually, if I can find it, I'll give it to you. I actually had cut out of TV Guide when the shows actually aired at like 6 in the morning or whatever it was. But, you know, for us to actually be able to sit in our homes and watch something that we created was mind-blowing.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I know you guys, sounds like you're doing a lot. So I'm sure you guys spent a lot of time together.
Oh, yeah, we did.
Do you think, I mean, even to this day, like, how do you think that the relationships that you built, like, from TV Club, like, how do you think they sort of stand the test of time, I guess?
Oh, they're great. I mean, so many of the people that I've met in TV Club, I've worked with pretty much my whole career. Mm-hmm. Several of the people, we all kind of scattered to different networks, but we're all in touch with one another so often. And then there were several people who wound up at ABC like I did, and people I would see every day, people we just attended a memorial service, unfortunately, for one of our people who passed away. But all of the people that we were, who were there were people that I have known for over 50 years and I've worked with. So be prepared, people. You're going to know each other for a long time.
Even as, I guess, one of the first alumni of the club, can you speak sort of to the strength of the alumni network? I'm sure you've been around a while. Like more people have come in, but we've been in contact with a lot of alumni. I think they keep coming back. Like, what do you think is the secret, like, to, I guess, keeping such a strong alumni network?
Well, I guess you become pretty bonded. I mean, if you work in a studio like this, you're together how many hours a day? And it's just like that in the real world. I mean, I've worked on shoots where you're sitting and working 10, 12 hours a day. You get to know people really well, and you get to pretty much have some deep relationships. Like you might see somebody at work and somebody here more than you see at your family, because you put so many hours in. So sure, I think that's just having that amount of time together and to have a common purpose really keeps these things going.
Just even coming back, I don't know if you've been back before. Have you?
I have.
Yeah,
I
right.
have a couple of times, but we were talking over 50 years, so not that many.
Yeah, I mean, just every time you come back and you like interact with the students, is there anything like in particular that you noticed about like the new students?
I just noticed that everybody seems to be taking it seriously, and particularly this group of people that I've met today. Everybody's taking this very seriously, and they are learning as much as they can.
Just the club itself. Like, why do you think it is that it's like, even to this day, I think it's going very strong from the beginning? I think it sort of like kept that momentum. What do you think it is that sort of, I guess, drives everyone together to keep it going?
Common purpose, wanting to learn it, wanting to have a career in the business, having this type of foundation to fall back on. I know when I first started, I fell back on a lot of things that I learned here. Like I said, work ethic, knowing what goes into a TV show, because you put your heart and soul into this stuff. That gives you a good connection when you carry that forward to your jobs in the future. And hopefully everybody who wants to be in TV will find a path to get there. I mean, I was fortunate that I had a connection through St. John's that helped me get started. Hopefully, everybody will get some kind of hook, something to get you in there. Internships today are really important. See if you can get into the internships to find fun. Because I remember too, when I was like a junior, I got an internship this summer to Channel 5, and I was a page at Channel 5, seating people in different audiences that they had. So, whatever you can get in on.
And how was that transition for you, I guess, sort of coming straight out of college, like into the working world? What was that like for you?
That's where the whole woman thing came in. That was really eye-opening. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but the beginning of my career in television was pretty awful. Like I was saying, when I was a student here working with everyone, we were all equal. As soon as I got into the business, now, being in the technical end, there weren't that many women to begin with. There, at ABC in the engineering department, there was maybe 2,000 people. There were 6 women. We started together, a group of us. And we were kind of separated. There were a lot of older men like my father's age, who have a whole different idea of what it is to work with a woman. And young women constantly being hit on, constantly being objectified, constantly not being taken seriously. That was shocking to me because I never experienced that before. I remember I was assigned to a show. It was the Harry Reasoner Report. It was ABC Network News. And I reported to the technical director. And I said, I'm Patricia Clark. I'm here. I'm assigned to you. Is there a camera? I can do whatever you want me to do. He said, well, there's a stool in the corner. Go sit on it. And he kept me there for 2 days until finally I said, look, I'm not going to do this. This isn't what I am here to do. So I went back and I discussed it with some people, and I went back to Fred Schumann and I said, what do I do with this? How do I handle this? And he said, just be patient. You know, things will change, things will get better. It took a long time. To be honestly speaking, it was a really long time before things got any better. Today, there still aren't that many women doing technical jobs. But I see that there are, you know, not as many as I would like to see, but if I go out on a news story, if I go do some different things, I will see other women cameramen. Some people, sometimes I see just in the background of different shows or something, I'll catch a woman being on camera. So that's good. But it's still not wide open, even to this point. I remember I was in 1976, I was just in the company a year, and there was the Montreal Olympics were happening, and a lot of people wanted to go to the Montreal Olympics, and nobody wanted to be a technical director for the summer. So my boss said to me, I want you to be a technical director this summer. And I was like, usually that job was reserved for people who had tons of experience, audio or video or whatever. And I knew from St. John's that I had been a technical director here and a director, so I was familiar with it. So I said, well, if you're willing to help me out, I will do it. And at the minute I got that job, all hell broke loose because I was female, never heard of that before. I was young, never heard of that before. So there was so much resistance from my own union members. You know, they were threatening to break my fingers. They were going to follow me down the hall. I mean, it was an awful situation. ABC finally had to hire private security for me to walk through the hallways. So that's the kind of thing that, you know, we went through in the early days. And fortunately, that kind of stuff doesn't exist anymore, I believe. But there's a lot more subtle things happening for women. I think the Me Too movement has been great. I think that women need to talk a lot to each other about what's going on in their lives at work. And don't take any crap, you know, stand up. We were kind of afraid because we thought, well, if I speak up and I say something, then that means that, you know, I'm going to lose my job or they're going to give me a terrible assignment or something like that. Well, after I wound up with the security guard, they put me on midnight to 8 shift. You know, how much worse could it get? So anyway, it's just, I would say, I don't think women have that kind of hard time anymore, but I also think it's not over. And I think all women have to be on their guard when they're out there and, you know, talk to each other, protect each other, stand up for yourself, you know. I think women have more of a license to do that today than they did in my day, you know, to stand up for yourself. Because there's more of women, women are starting to get more into power. We could use a lot more.
What do you think that even like unions or just like anybody working in the industry in general can do to sort of push for diversity? Because I know, like you mentioned, even now, there's still not a lot.
You know, it's funny. We've kind of ebbed and flowed with diversity. Because when I was starting, it was kind of like when Ms. Magazine came about and, you know, Gloria Steinem and the women's movement and all was just happening in the early 70s. And companies started to have quotas. They had to hire a more racially diverse group and more women. Today, they don't seem to care as much about having that kind of diversity. There's not a lot of attention to it. So I'm thinking that maybe maybe that's something that needs to kind of be revisited. You know, I work with a pretty diverse group, but I, you know, did camera at ABC for 45 years. I was replaced by a white guy. So what does that say? You know.
Right. How do you think changes like that even come about? Like, what do you think still needs to be done to make that happen?
I think people just have to be loud about it, you know. There still needs to be attention to affirmative action. I think that corporations and production companies still need to hire a diverse group of people. I think there needs to be pressure on them to do that. You know, like you can see how many women directors are. There's not that many women directors. It's not that easy. But it's happening. It's just very slow. There needs to be more women in control of things. And how you get there is probably a long road. But I think that as many women and minorities and how much diversity is, like I see diversity in the lower level jobs. I'm not seeing as much diversity in the higher jobs. That is slow, and that's where the push needs to come.
Once again, thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure.
We truly appreciate you taking the time to sit with us and share some of your stories. I absolutely loved hearing your insights and getting to take a little look into some of TV Club history. We hope to see you again this year. That's all we have for today. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram at WRED-TV. And to celebrate our 50th anniversary, we will be raffling off 3 free special edition t-shirts at the end of the semester to anyone who likes and comments on all of our productions that come out for fall 2021. For more WRED-TV merch, check out our Redbubble link below. You can also check out our website, WRED-TV, for more content and how to find out more about how you can be part of our production family. Once again, I'm Caitlin Prieto. Thank you for watching.
As president of the Television Club, I feel that if we can generate just one career in the medium, then all our efforts will be successful. And considering the power of the television medium today, TV Club here at St. John's may turn out to be one of the most important and influential clubs on campus.